Section 3.3, Graphs and Functions. So in Section 3.1, we learned to graph using a t-chart. Now we're actually going to use and graph the way you would usually graph. But if you forget, use a t-chart. So there are three ways to graph lines: a t-chart, intercepts, and slope and y-intercepts. So the reason why I say you need 3 points is just because it gives you the ability to see the way the graph is going to turn out. So it's just good to have 3 points every time you graph. So intercepts are where the graph crosses or touches an axis. So to find the x-intercept, you make y equals 0 and solve for x. And to find the y-intercept, you make x equals 0 and solve for y. So whatever you're trying to find, the opposite is 0. Graph using slope and y-intercept, that's the most commonly used. The equation must be in slope-intercept form. That's y equals mx plus b. Then identify m and b. M is your slope, and b is your y-intercept, and it's always going to be 0 and whatever b is. After you identify those, you're going to plot the y-intercept and use the slope to make 2 more points. If you have a positive slope, you can either go up and right or down and left. If you have a negative slope, you either go down and right or up and left. So for example 1, we're going to graph each of these. So let's start with A. The first thing we want to do is identify, well, first of all, make sure it's in y equals mx plus b, and it is. Now you want to identify the slope. The slope is the number with the x. So the slope, which is our m, is 1 over 2. Since it's positive, we can go up and right, or down and left. Now we can go down and left because down is a negative and left is negative, and negative divided by a negative is positive. After we identify the slope, we want to identify our y-intercept. Our y-intercept is always going to be the number without the x, and it's always going to be 0, that number. Take the sign with it, that's why it's negative 3. After you have those two things, you can go ahead and start graphing. So the first thing you want to graph is the y-intercept, so 0, negative 3. I also call the y-intercept the start, because that's where you start your graph. Next, we use the slope to make 2 more points. So I'm going to go up 1, right 2. And then you can go ahead and go back to the start and go down 1, left 2. You could have also just gone back to this point and go up 1, right 2, up 1, right 2, and keep going. But for this example, I wanted it to go both ways. And then connect the dots. Moving on to B. So B is 8x plus 2y equals 4, and you notice it's not in y equals mx plus b form, that's slope-intercept form, so we need to solve for y by subtracting 8x. So we're left with 2y equals negative 8x plus 4, and then divide everything by 2. So y equals negative 4x plus 2. Now we can go and identify our slope and y-intercept. So our slope, which is our m, is negative 4. What's underneath every single whole number? A 1. So I can go up and left, or down and right. Now our y-intercept, which is our start, is 0, 2. So we go ahead and go to 0, 2. And then we're going to use the slope to plot 2 more points. So I'm not going to go up. I don't have space. So I'm going to go down 4, right 1. And see how I don't have space to put another dot? In this case, you can go ahead and just do 2, and it's completely fine. Moving on to C. So C is f of x equals negative x. Now, what do we know f of x the same thing as? Well, that's the same thing as y. So now we want to identify our slope, which is our m, and that's negative 1 over 1. So I can go down and right, or up and left. Our start, which is our y-intercept, You see how there's no b, there's no plus or minus something? If there's nothing, there's always a 0. So it'd be 0, 0. So we go to our start. So we plot our start at 0, 0, and then we're going to use our slope to make 2 more points. So down 1, right 1, down 1, right 1, up 1, left 1. I'm just creating more points and connect the dots. Objective 2, graphing vertical and horizontal lines. So horizontal line, that's y equals a number. So for example, you want to go to where y says it is. So if y, that's supposed to say y, if y equals 3, you go to where y equals 3 and you plot the point and you draw a line through that axis. So since it says y, you're going to draw a line through it. And that's what you did here. Now same thing with a vertical. So vertical is you're going to go to where x says it is. So vertical is always going to be x equals. So you go to where that is and draw a line through the axis. So for example 2, let's graph each line. So x equals 4, that's right here. Draw a line through the x-axis. Y equals -2 is right here. Draw a line through the axis.